find the young girls getting crazy when you accept that you are a feminist?
I think it's great. When I said I was a feminist, and I didn't expect such a big cheer. I mean, I hoped they would be happy and pleased and agree with me, but I didn't think it would be such a moment. But yeah, somebody asked me why I make my character so feminist, and I said, well, because I'm a feminist. I mean, it just seemed kind of logical to me.
As I see it, I want to talk a little bit about your characters during the whole story.
Mm-hmm.
If we think about Daphne and Violet, it's these two kind of women who has found how to bend the rules.
Mm-hmm.
Not very hard, always with a smile, but they are always bending the rules.
They're not breaking them, but they're bending them, yeah. And so, this was a time in which breaking the rules could utterly ruin your life. Much more so than today. Breaking them could change everything for you if you were a woman. You could be completely ostracized. You could lose your family. You could lose everything. And so for a lot of women, in order to find their own happiness and their own power in the world, they had to learn how to bend the rules without quite breaking them. And it was a tricky road. And so that's what they do. And I'm proud of them, frankly.
That's kind of being a hero in the 19th century, isn't it?
Well, it's very subversive, and I also like to think it's maybe can give some inspiration to some people, because I feel like so often, when we're hearing about people in history, we hear about the extraordinary ones who do break the rules. But for every extraordinary person who breaks the rules and comes out powerful, there are many who don't. And so I really like to show people who are perhaps a little bit more like you and me, people who, I don't want to call them regular people, because we all know the Bridgertons are fabulously rich and beautiful and all these things. They're not regular people, but the point is, there are a lot of unsung heroes in life who have bent the rules so that somebody else can come and break them. So they're kind of out there taking the bricks out of the wall so that, in 50 years, some women can come and knock the wall down and say, hey, it's time to let women into university, and it's time to let women vote and all these things. But they're making it happen for the next generation.
It's absolutely necessary.
I think so. And I think that it's very important to celebrate the women who do the quiet work as well as the women who do the loud work.
But you have also Lady Whistledown, who
mm-hmm.
is bragging her power through the words,
mm-hmm.
but
mm-hmm.
not showing her face. It's a very specific relationship with power. You have all these kaleidoscope of women and different kind of relationships with power.
Well, that was the only way she could have that kind of power then. I mean, if you look at female authors at the time, I believe, Jane Austen was not named.
At all.
At that point, she did not put her name on her books. Most women were using, if they had a name on their books, they picked a male pseudonym. So for somebody, I think everybody knows who Lady Whistledown is right now, so I think I can give it away. For somebody like Penelope to be identified as Lady Whistledown, that would have tanked Lady Whistledown. Nobody would have taken her seriously if they knew who she really was. But also, it would have made Penelope's situation much more tenuous. And so this was a way for Penelope to find this power that society itself didn't want to give her.
It's kind of giving her the chance to have a double life.
Yeah, and even today, like if I tried to think about somebody trying to do that today, actually an anonymous gossip column would be still very powerful today. It'd be, almost more powerful than if we knew who was saying it.
We saw it in, thinking about Sex and the City, for instance. Mm-hmm. Carrie is writing this kind of not so important column for Bach,
mm-hmm.
but at the end, it is making a change.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Is that how you like to think about Penelope? Having this opportunity to change something from the bottom?
I don't know that she was really trying to change society or anything like that from the bottom. She was really just observing and finding this way to observe and to change. I think she started out really more trying to change her life. Because this was a way she could actually use her talents and actually make some money, because she really never thought she was going to get married. Nobody was paying her any attention, and the life of an unmarried woman from that social strata was not a great one. You know, she would be completely dependent upon her married relatives at one point. So to come up with a way to have her own income was very, very powerful and unique.
She's taking control.
Oh, yes, she is.
I love that. On the other hand, you have two characters who has endured the varying or bearing the load of being the family's head. Mm-hmm. And I want to talk about Anthony and Lady Danbury. Mm-hmm. It's a very different approach, because Anthony is suffering all the time because, oh well, no, I'm going to be the family's head forever. In the other hand, Lady Danbury is like, I'm not supposed to be, but she's quite comfortable handling things.
Yeah. I mean, and one thing with Lady Danbury, I think it is important to notice that the backstory that she's been given on the show is not quite the same as the backstory she has in the books. Although she doesn't have a ton of backstory in the books, we do know that she thought her husband was an idiot in the books, and that her kids are kind of silly. And that's really all we know about her backstory. We know that when she was widowed, and we don't know how old she was when she was widowed, but that's when she really came into her own and is suddenly like, this is great. I'm in charge now of my life and I can do what I want. With Danbury, it's quite different. He's very conflicted. His father dies when he's quite young. And this was modeled after someone in real life that I knew whose father died quite young. I think, at the age of maybe 48 or something. And this person just could not imagine ever living longer than his father did, and just had this sense that I will die before I reach that age. And I talked to a psychologist as I was writing this book, and it turns out this is a very common thing among people whose parents die young, is that they just cannot conceive of outliving them in that way, because they were such a big looming figure in their lives. And so with Anthony, you have this compounded by the fact that he is now the head of his family, and that means something in Regency England that perhaps is not quite the same now. You are responsible for your siblings and indeed your mother in a way that perhaps we don't have to deal with now. And it's terrifying. It's a terrifying responsibility.
It seems to be that the most important thing for you when you were writing the Bridgertons was reaching the point of intimacy that exists among a family. It's not only about who is the family's head, mm-hmm. but it's more about how we create this intimacy between the members of the family.
Yeah. One of the things I really like about the series, each book is first and foremost a romance, and it's about the love story, a romantic love story. But it also showcases all these other types of love as well, the love between friends and the love between family. And again, even though the love story is always, the primary part of the book, it was important to me to have these undercurrents of other types of relationships, because I think usually it's not healthy just to have one person. I have my husband and I adore him, but I also have my best friend, and I also have my parents, and I have my siblings, and now I have my kids too. And all of these relationships are important in different ways, and I need them all. And so I really wanted to show people in this kind of wholeness of what they get from various relationships in their life.
You said before that you like writing books with happiness. Mm-hmm. Do you think we need to reivindicate the happiness issue? Like, we are not allowed to be happy anymore because the world is chaotic and war and everything?
Mm-hmm. No, I think we have to find happiness where we can. And which isn't to say we should be ignoring all the problems and all the tragedy that's around us. We should be certainly trying to do something about that. But we're allowed to seek happiness for ourselves. We're allowed to make that a goal in our lives. And I think it's important to have art in our lives, whether it's books or movies or whatever, that shows happiness as a worthy goal. And which isn't to say, I love the edgy, spooky, whatever type of stuff as well. I mean, I watched Succession like everybody else and thought it was fabulous, but boy, I don't want to hang around with those people. And I also think it's important to show things of people who are actually kind and good and reaching for happiness in a way that isn't sickly sweet, but fun and intelligent and can make people think, hey, I want that in my life too. And that's okay. And that's good.
That's a great answer.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
I have another question.
Okay.
We know, I think you're very aware, there is generations who have grown up with your characters.
Okay,
It's been a while.
That still freaks me out. It makes me feel so old, but okay.
but it's there.
Mm-hmm.
But I have this question. How have you grown up through the Bridgertons as a woman and as a writer? Because you've been hanging around with them for a while.
I have been hanging around with them a while. And actually, it occurred to me that, when the books first came out and people say, well, which character's most like you? I would say, and I think this is true, that I'm a combination of Eloise, Penelope, and Francesca. But now that I've gotten older, I think I might be Violet now.
Whoa.
I think I've changed. And hopefully maybe in 20 years I get to be Lady Danbury. So there is that. I know. I don't think I'll ever be Queen Charlotte, but she's not in the books. She's only in the show. Have we grown as a writer? I mean, you hope that with every book you grow as a writer, you get better at your craft, you learn how to do something a little different, you learn to be more aware of inherent bias that you might have in your book, of lots of things. So I couldn't pinpoint specifically how, within this particular 8-book series I grew as opposed to any other period, really, to be honest.
But you feel like you grow.
Oh, yeah. I mean, if you look at my very first book to the more recent ones, I would hope you can see that I've grown as a writer and I've gotten better.
We've seen it.
Okay. I appreciate that.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Julia.
Thank you for having me.